The Galactic Council had made their first mistake when they assumed humanity would bow. Their second mistake was believing mercy was weakness. Diana Reeves stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie's Wrath, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. 47 human colonies reduced to ash, 16 billion souls extinguished in coordinated strikes across 3 sectors. The Zinthara Collective had called it necessary culling. They had called humanity vermin infesting the galactic garden. Now, 3 years later, the garden was about to learn what happened when you awaken sleeping monsters. Admiral, we're approaching the Zinthara home system, Lieutenant Oliver Chen reported from the tactical station, his fingers dancing across haptic controls. Fleet reports all vessels in position. 200 dreadnoughts, 500 cruisers, and 1,000 corvettes. We outnumber their defensive fleet 3-1. Diana nodded slowly. The numbers didn't matter. What mattered was the message. The Zinthara had built their civilization on the principle of overwhelming force. For 10,000 years they had crushed any species that dared resist their expansion. Their crystalline ships were works of art, beautiful, efficient, deadly. Their warriors were bred in genetic vats, perfect soldiers without fear or hesitation. They had conquered 43 species before encountering humanity. They had studied Earth's history and found it amusing. Humans fought each other constantly, their planet scarred by countless wars. The Zinthara leadership had laughed at intercepted transmissions showing human art, human philosophy, human pleas for peace. Such softness, they thought, would make humanity easy prey. The first colony to fall was New Harmony, a peaceful settlement on a garden world, home to 3 million farmers, artists, and scientists who had left Earth seeking a simpler life. The Zinthara fleet arrived without warning, without demands. They simply opened fire. When the ashes cooled, they transmitted a message to Earth. Submit or perish. Humanity's response had been silence. For 6 months, nothing. The Zinthara grew confident. They struck again. New Kyoto, Port Freeman, Stella Maris. Each time they waited for humanity's surrender. Each time they heard only silence. What they didn't know was that humanity wasn't silent. Humanity was preparing. Oliver, Diana said quietly, initiate Protocol Ragnarok. The young lieutenant's jaw tightened. He'd lost his parents on New Harmony, his sister on Port Freeman. When he looked at Diana, she saw the same cold fire that burned in every human heart since the first attack. With pleasure, Admiral, the Valkyrie's Wrath shuddered as its main weapon, the Helios cannon, began charging. Across the fleet, 200 identical signatures flared to life. Each dreadnought carried humanity's answer to Zinthara aggression. Weapons that didn't just destroy ships, but cracked planets. Incoming transmission from Zinthara High Command, the communications officer announced. Put it through, Diana ordered. The hologram shifted, revealing a Zinthara commander, a towering crystalline being that refracted light into rainbow patterns. Its voice resonated like wind chimes. Human fleet, you have violated collective space. Withdraw immediately or face annihilation. We offer you one chance at mercy. Diana smiled without warmth. Mercy, you destroyed 47 worlds and now speak of mercy? Your species trespassed in our designated expansion zone. We enacted standard protocols. You were warned. We submitted once, Diana interrupted, her voice dropping to ice. 5,000 years ago, my ancestors submitted to Rome. Before that, to countless empires. We've submitted, been enslaved, been slaughtered. We learned something from all that suffering. She leaned forward. We learned that mercy is wasted on those who mistake it for weakness. The Zinthara commander's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. You cannot win. Your fleet is already dead. They just don't know it yet. Oliver's fingers moved. Helios cannons at full charge, Admiral. Fire! Light erupted across the void. 200 beams of concentrated stellar fury lanced through space, each carrying the power of a newborn sun. The Zinthara defensive fleet tried to scatter, tried to return fire, tried to activate their vaunted energy shields. Nothing helped. Human weapons didn't obey the elegant rules of energy dissipation. Humanity had learned warfare from a harsh teacher, themselves. While other species refined their technology toward efficiency and beauty, humans had refined theirs toward one singular purpose: overwhelming, absolute destruction. The Zinthara ships didn't explode. They vaporized, One moment, a proud crystalline battleship. The next, expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Within 90 seconds, the entire defensive fleet ceased to exist. Target their orbital platforms, Diana commanded. Oliver didn't hesitate. More beams lanced down, and the defensive satellites that had protected Zinthera Prime for millennia burned like matchsticks. The transmission came again, but this time it was different. The crystalline commander's voice carried something the Zinthara rarely experienced: fear. Stop. We can negotiate. The Council will offer reparations. Reparations? Diana's laugh was bitter. How do you pay reparations for 16 billion lives? How do you restore children who never got to grow up? How do you unburn worlds? Please, we didn't understand. You thought we were weak. You thought our desire for peace meant we couldn't wage war. You made the oldest mistake in the galaxy. You confused humanity's choice not to be monsters with an inability to become them. Diana looked at Oliver. In his eyes, she saw new harmony burning. She saw her own memories of Port Freeman, where her brother had taught school. She saw the faces of 16 billion dead. The thing about humans, Diana continued, her voice carrying across the transmission to a dying empire, is that we tried peace. We built art and music and philosophy. We reached for the stars with hope in our hearts. We wanted to be better than our violent past. She paused, letting the silence stretch. But you reminded us of something we'd almost forgotten. When you push humanity hard enough, when you slaughter our innocence and laugh at our grief, you don't face philosophers or artists or dreamers. The Helios cannons began charging again. You face Earth's true children, the descendants of warriors who survived ice ages and plagues, the inheritors of every soldier who ever held a line, the children of a species that didn't become apex predators by accident. Admiral, please. You wanted to speak the language of force, Diana said coldly. You wanted to teach the galaxy that strength was the only currency that mattered. Congratulations, lesson learned. Oliver looked up. Cannons charged, targeting planetary shields. Diana stood, her hands behind her back, watching the Zinthera homeworld spin peacefully in the holographic display. 47 human worlds had looked just as peaceful before the attacks. You thought humanity would forgive, she said softly. But forgiveness is for those who show remorse, for those who value life, for those who understand that mercy is a gift, not a right. She took a breath. Fire all weapons. Leave nothing. The Valkyrie's wrath and its sister ship spoke then in the only language the Zinthera collective had ever truly understood. The language of fire and fury. The language of species survival. The language of a humanity that had tried peace and been answered with genocide. The language of destruction. When the lights faded and the weapons cooled, Zinthera Prime was a cracked, lifeless sphere. Diana Reeves looked at the ruins and felt no triumph, no joy. Only the cold satisfaction of a promise kept. Transmit this to all Galactic Council members, she ordered. Humanity sought peace. You chose war. Let this be a lesson to any species that mistakes our compassion for weakness. We will defend our own. We will remember our dead. And we will never ever forgive those who mistake our humanity for an invitation to slaughter. Oliver sent the transmission, then looked at his admiral. What now? Diana turned from the display, her eyes hard. Now we go home. And we make sure this never happens again. The human fleet turned as one, leaving behind a tomb of their own making, a monument not to human cruelty, but to human resolve. They had learned the terrible truth that day. Peace was humanity's preference, but war was their inheritance, and when forced to choose, humanity would always speak in the tongue their enemies understood best.